So I wanted to talk about the 64-bit server. We're going to dive into some changes that potentially will be happening in DDO, but have already happened over in the Lotro side. Standing Stone Games has been rolling out 64-bit servers over on the Lotro side. They're faster, they're more stable, they can handle way more players than the old servers. And so far for Lotro, the shift has been a success. It hasn't gone off without a hitch, but for the most part, it's better. I think that what they've discovered is that everybody tried to get onto one server, and so they've tried to stagger that a little bit and encourage people to go onto one of the other servers, but it's allowed them to sort of analyze the ceiling of how many people it can handle, the server can actually handle. And so when they finally come over and do it for DDO, while we have Cormier as a 64-bit server, and they've used that to discover a lot of the issues with lag that we had, they really haven't like tried to funnel the majority of like players to one of the 64-bit servers. Right now, Cormier for DDO is a VIP only, and that means that it's locked behind a paywall. Like, you have to pay at least $100 a year in order to subscribe, in order to play there. SSG's announced more 64-bit servers are coming to DDO, and that there will be free transfers. The thing that we don't know, and this is sort of what prompted me to make this video, is that will they be allowing transfers to Cormier? Will Cormier become a normal server? Or will they keep Cormier as a VIP exclusive only server and not allow transfers to or from it? We don't know this yet. But what we're going to do is break down a little bit of like some history of other video games, and we're going to take a look at some of the pros and cons that SSG might encounter by doing this. One of the things initially that a lot of people talk about is that they don't want to fracture the community. They don't want to split the community. It's something that we've had a lot of people talk about in regards to Hardcore League. One of the biggest complaints for Hardcore League was that during the event that there were not many people logging into the regular servers because everybody was logging into the event. I never saw that as a problem, but I play on the Hardcore League, so that's where I am. But if people were relying on me to be on Sarlona, which is my old server, they wouldn't see me during Hardcore because I'm always on the Hardcore League. And so they aren't wrong. There is a little bit of population fracturing when they do these events. And so we've seen that on Cormier too, with the Lanterns in the Mist, that a lot of people logged into Cormier to do the event, and the population on the normal servers went down as the population on Cormier went up. But now, since the event is coming to an end, the populations have sort of gone back to normal, and Cormier's population is way down. And so now that brings up the question, well, if the VIP event for Lanterns of the Mist is ending, they gave us the raid, which is the end of the narrative. They gave us the the raid, which they allow people to play on any server. Even if you didn't do Lanterns of the Mist, you can still do the raid, the new raid that they released. Which is sort of another, that also prompted me to want to make this video and talk about this a little bit, because from my perception, if they want VIP exclusive content, and if they want to keep Cormier as a 64-bit exclusive content server, then that raid only should have been on Cormier. It shouldn't have been rolled out to the rest of the servers. Now, I personally don't care. I actually, my personal belief is I want the content on all the servers. I'm not actually a fan of the VIP only idea. And we'll talk about a lot of reasons why, but I just don't see it as a value for the VIP sub. Unless there's some other events that they have planned for the server that they just haven't announced or we don't know about. But we do know from reading the producer letter that the event that's coming in October is going to be rolled out for everyone on all the servers. It's not going to be an exclusive event on Cormyr. So I'm not exactly sure, but what we're going to do is take a quick look at the pros and cons and kind of figure out what it could mean. And then we'll take a look at a little bit of some other things while we're talking about this. But so let's go over the good things about keeping Cormyr as a VIP only server. Obviously, these are my opinions. I've not contacted SSG about this at all. I'm just basically talking about this as a player. But so one of the things that really comes to mind initially as a pro would be that it will allow them to have a bit of stability. Having a VIP only server allows them to have a bit of revenue stability in the sense that it ensures an income stream from subscribers who are willing to pay to play there. There are MMOs that do this sort of thing, and we'll talk about them, but DDO relies heavily on the subscription model to make their money, along with microtransactions. The maintaining of the Cormyr as an exclusive server could incentivize players to VIP sub to keep their VIP subs active. And this would especially be relevant if they keep it for perks and events that are only occurring on Cormyr. So it would be a good value add if there were like events that only existed on Cormyr that continued, on into the future. Another thing would be that it's prestige, so it's sort of like FOMO. VIPs, like people who are VIPs, can log into a server that other players cannot log into, and that comes with a bit of FOMO, fear of missing out. Like it is without getting into the psychology of it, is definitely something that affects players. A lot of players will go out of their way to achieve or acquire FOMO. And so it could drive VIP subs. So, I mean, like from that perspective, that would be a pro. The only downside would be if there weren't any tangible benefits for the sub. Like, what's the point of playing on Cormyr 64 if it's the same as every other server, if it's getting the same, like what we saw with the end of the Lanterns in the Mist event with the raid. The raid is on all the servers now. Well, how is that exclusive content? It isn't. So like that sort of takes away from the exclusive prestige of a VIP sub, right? Another pro for the Cormyr 64 VIP sub only model would be that it provides SSG with a very controlled testing ground, and we saw this in action where they were having us post location data to Discord when they were hunting down lag storms. So from our perspective as players, it doesn't really add to the VIP bonus because basically it would be a real-time performance monitor for SSG, allowing them to sort of help solve problems in real time that would affect all the other servers. But as people have pointed out to me, that they don't want to have to pay to help SSG beta test or to, server test. Like that is a stretch to make that into an amenity. But there are some people who like to help. Like I was a beta tester for Turbine. I was happy to help. I didn't have to pay, though, right? That's the big difference. I didn't have to pay. And so, like, obviously, doing VIP only to Cormyr, if it had extra stuff going on there, would encourage subscriptions over free-to-play. The downside would be that they wouldn't be able to have transfers on or off of the server because they would want to then keep the non-VIP server populations isolated from that. And then another potential pro would be that they could implement more VIP bonus perks for VIPs that play on Cormyr only. So they could add more exclusive content, more exclusive events, more exclusive rewards, exclusive login rewards for Cormyr. Not just like Lanterns in the Mist, but things like, anybody who has a VIP sub and logs into Cormyr once a month could receive a reward similar to that what we saw for the Year of the Dragon. Now, again, I'm just spitballing ideas of things that they could justify a special server with. They also could do specific Tolkien lore, or not Tolkien, I'm sorry, D&D lore events that are tied to something that's occurring. In other words, like, they could continue the Year of the Dragon celebrations on Cormyr because it's a VIP. So, like, we could get a Year of the Dragon yearly event. So, whatever Gary Gygax's birthday is, I don't know off the top of my head. But every year on Cormyr, there could be a party for a week that only people who VIP subbed could participate in. That would be something that would have a clear benefit for the player base, and it would also be something that added to the value of the VIP sub. So the cons of doing this, obviously, you probably can think of a few. One of them is fracturing the player base. Right now, all the players play on the 32-bit servers. If we don't count Cormyr, there are, I forget how many, 8 or whatever, where all the people play. Arganescence, Sarlona, Thelanis, you all know the servers. And the biggest complaint that we got during hardcore season was the fracturing of the community. So having a VIP-only server where it would draw VIP subs, that means that there would be a lot less VIPs on the free servers, and that might adversely affect certain raiding guilds and questing guilds and friendships, and it could risk alienating free-to-play players. They might feel excluded from the parts of the game that they want to but cannot afford to participate in because it's now behind a paywall. Another con would be that if there were no clear VIP benefit, like without a unique feature, without a unique reward on Cormyr, without a unique gameplay enhancing Cormyr, a VIP restriction would feel sort of arbitrary, and then it would probably default back to, why are we paying to play on a beta testing server where they test things that they roll out to the other servers? Like, players who pay expect value for the subscription, and that would be a frustration for a lot of the players. I know I personally, like, I VIP sub already, so like, and I'm already invested in Cormyr, so I'm there no matter what. But my understanding when I initially went to it was going to be the first of many 64-bit servers. I didn't realize that they may decide to keep it as a VIP only, and I may not be able to move my main there. I've always sort of thought that I could move my main there. And so as a result, like, that would be upsetting, because that would mean that I would have to move my account and my main to a different 64-bit server. And so now my attention is in two places: Cormyr for whatever events they do, which is fine, because that's what I've done for old school hardcore, but then this new 64-bit server where all of my Sarlona stuff would be. And then if they potentially did an old school hardcore, that would be a third server. And so then it would just fracture me and spread me out. So now I've got Mary on Cormyr for the VIP stuff, Mary on whatever the Sarlona 64-bit replacement is, and then whatever the hardcore league would be. So it's just, not that I would personally really care, but I can understand why people would say want one experience. They wouldn't want to have to be in 3 different places at once. And another con that could be associated with doing something like paywalling a server, which is, it could leave a bad taste in the community the community's mouth because of it's sort of like, why is the server going to be behind a paywall? Like, we're already paying to play the game. Everybody should have access to the content. And then it just opens up the question, well, what is the free VIP, like free to play VIP model then? Like, free to play people should have access to the entire game, and then they should be able to buy extra amenities that make the gameplay easier, but they shouldn't be limited from something. Now, I understand having an exclusive VIP experience is things that other games have done. And we're going to take a look at some of those games quickly to see if anybody had any luck with that, right? So we might as well talk about that right now. In the game, World of Warcraft did something, and Rift did something. Rift Prime is called a disaster. It was a VIP server. And then WoW did something called Connected Realms, which actually was a big W, supposedly, for the game. So we're going to take a really quick look at the breakdown of a few different games, World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls Online, and others, to see whether or not these sort of VIP-only services were positive or negative, or whether they were mixed into the community reaction. So the first one we're going to take a look at is World of Warcraft. They did something called server merges and connected realms, and what happened was that WoW underwent many server-related changes over its 20-plus year history. Starting around 2013, Blizzard introduced something called Connected Realms, which effectively merged low-population servers into clusters to boost player connection without fully consolidating them. So basically, you would still, like if we did this in DDO, you'd still be on your home server on Sarlona, on Arganessen, but when you went to queue into a group, like for an LFM, what those servers would do is combine the LFMs from all the different servers. So it basically pulled players from the different servers for that instance, for that quest. People could play together, and then when the quest was over, they'd be back on their home server. A lot of people like that, and it worked really well. I've actually played World of Warcraft a little and witnessed that in real time, and I found that it was great for making groups available. I thought it worked out really well. In Shadowlands in 2020, Blizzard learned that cross-server functionality and sharding, they actually keep servers busy, but they did notice that populations on some of the servers still died off. In DDO, we have that with like Wayfinder. There are some servers whose populations have tanked out, so it's likely that anything regarding a VIP subscription-only server would not be good for those servers, right? It would probably cause them to further drop out. For WoW players, a lot of people liked that change. People in guilds felt like they could participate. Auction house, I guess they did like cross-server auction house functionality, which was really good. It's one of the things that I noticed on Cormier. The auction house is full of stuff to buy. When I go to Sarlona, the auction house doesn't have much on it at all. Just a lot of people on Sarlona don't post a lot of stuff on the regular old plat market. There is the shard market's pretty busy, but the plat market is pretty dead. But on Cormier, the plat market's alive and well. So it would be really cool if our auction house system, both the shard and the plat markets were, and I'm not sure if SSG could do this, but were for every server. That would be really cool. So if you wrote a mail or you interacted with the server, for it to interact with all the servers, that would be super cool. A negative about the WoW Connected Realms was that people felt like it sort of eroded server identities, and it really, because it stopped mattering what server you were on. Role-playing, kind of, the role-play community took a big hit from that, and it's just there were a lot of people who didn't like it. for that reason. They felt like if you had a name like Proudmoore or Moonguard, that carried a specific weight with it in the community of World of Warcraft. And now that you could have people meeting up from all the different servers, those kind of communities felt a little bit like they were reduced. Elder Scrolls Online is the next game we'll look at really quickly. They did something called a mega server upgrade. Elder Scrolls Online launched in 2014 with a mega server model, which was a massive server per region that handled an instance of the entire population, and over time ZeniMax upgraded the hardware to handle players and to fix performance issues, especially in PvP zones like Cyrodiil. They did a lot of measures to keep the mega server functioning, and so the good news about the mega server concept was that it was praised by players for accessibility. They didn't have to choose a realm when they logged in. There was no dead servers. They just logged in and played. And a lot of the lag in the PvE zones was reduced by this, but the PvP was still a nightmare. As a matter of fact, a lot of people quit SO over the Cyrodiil PvP zone stuff. I've never tried it. I mean, initially when I played Elder Scrolls Online, I did. I didn't really like PvP in that game, though. It had nothing to do with lag, though, why I didn't like it, but people complain that with a lack of a server choice being funneled onto the same server, if you ran into like toxic players or a toxic guild, there was no way to get away from them because there's no other servers. You just have to block them and still see them running around, which, I mean, I understand that, but that's just that's an MMO, like, you know, so that wouldn't bother me specifically. Elder Scrolls population has been healthy overall, although the PvP community apparently has blown up Reddit and forums about a lot of the failed PvP promises that ZeniMax made. The next thing we'll look at is Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 4, I think it's 14, did a thing called server congestion and data center expansion. Popularity for Final Fantasy XIV exploded with Endwalker in 2021 and overwhelmed its servers. Square Enix added new data centers and worlds, so they added Oceania in 2022. They offered free transfers to Oceania to ease congestion. They also introduced a VIP-like Road to 70 buff on these new servers to incentivize players to move, though this particular incentive was not VIP paywalled. New players loved the extra buff, the Road to 70, and the congestion on servers like Balmung and Gilgamesh saw relief as players actually did leave and spread out. The Oceania data center, people felt like was a godsend, especially for like players from Australia, because the server cut the ping down. They were playing with 200 ping, and then they could play with a 50 ping. But some veterans felt like people, guilds, groups were being pushed and overly encouraged to leave the crowded server to go and live on these new servers. And so like it upended some of the economy, it upended some of the role play. And one of the things that they saw is that, you know, that game is about the same amount of money that it costs for DDO. So a lot of people unsubscribed as a result of the frustration over this. Apparently, the community largely praised Square Enix transparency, but their execution was criticized. There were a lot of Reddit threads basically about how Square Enix devs were doing a great job, and then there'd be another equal amount of threads with people complaining that the devs needed to fix the servers. So it seems like there was some wins and some losses with that. The next game we'll look at really quick, we're not going to spend a lot more time on this, but is Star Wars The Old Republic. Star Wars The Old Republic did server merges. SWTOR launched in 2011, and I was there for the launch of SWTOR. They had like over 500 servers, but the game died, and by dying, meaning people didn't like the content, the direction. The EA failed to meet a lot of the promises that BioWare had made. But BioWare had developed SWTOR up to 2011 and was purchased. I believe it was in late 2011. I might be wrong on the date of the purchase, but EA acquired BioWare and basically gutted them. So BioWare was not able to deliver on a lot of the promises that SWTOR had initially they made with the launch of SWTOR. So as a result of a bunch of failed EA failing to meet the promises, and then the expansions not satisfying, launching with a lot of bugs, and I mean a lot of bugs, a lot of people just left and went and played other games at the time. WildStar was really popular at the time. A lot of people left to go play that. But so what EA did was merge everything down. All 500 of those servers got merged down eventually into 5 mega servers. And there were no VIP only servers, but there was a massive reduction in the servers to log into, right? So the downside was like a lot of the identity people who were role players from like Ebonhawk, or there were a lot of role players specifically in SWTOR that had a lot of pride in the server. There were a lot of people who played on like the PvP only servers that had a lot of pride. So when they all got dumped onto one server, a lot of people just left. But one of the good things was that the dead, what were dead servers, what felt like a dead game, all of a sudden SWTOR, if you were on one of these new servers, felt like it was, alive and kicking. There were just a lot of groups, a lot of things happening, a lot of raids, a lot of really big guilds doing conquest all the time. So there was a lot of stuff to do. So while the role players and small communities took a hit because their neighborhoods were gone, their old school, talk points, whatever, were gone, if you came from Ebonhawk, right? But on the new server, people still like guilds from Ebonhawk were there and things like that. Like my guild was originally on a server called Shadowlands, and then we got dumped onto another server. We were the biggest guild on Shadowlands, and when we got dumped onto the new server, we were one of the biggest, but we weren't able to stay the biggest just because there were a lot of people there. And then most of the people that I played with stopped playing anyway. So, I mean, it was just something. People think that probably those server merges saved SWTOR as a game to play because the servers aren't dead. But, I mean, it's one of those things where if you were to talk to SWTOR players, they would probably tell you the game is dead anyway. But they never did a VIP only, server. Now, Rift, the next game we'll talk about, they did. So Rift did something called VIP Server Prime. And what happened with Rift introduced Prime servers in 2018 under Tryon Worlds, later Gamingo, VIP only progression server requiring a subscription. It aimed to recreate the 2011 launch, and earlier Rift merged its dwindling servers down into a handful of servers, similar to other MMOs, right? Positive for this was nostalgia for fans. They love Prime, the vanilla vibe of the OG game, the slow leveling. There was no cash shop clutter. The mergers, PvP and PvE were dying on the other servers, so like that allowed people to participate again. But the overall feeling for Prime was that it was a massive fail, a big L. A lot of players said that it was a big flop. The sub fee to pay to play there was $15 a month, a similar VIP sub that we pay here in DDO. And a lot of the players over there in Rift said it was just a cash grab by Gamingo. Players ditched and left, and a lot of the player base called the VIP only model dead on arrival. And so it's one of those things like the prime failures show the VIP servers need a real value. People, the exclusive content or perk for the VIP sub, not just a paywall. A lot of people who played Rift felt like it was just a paywall and there was no real benefit to having the VIP only. And a lot of the forums from Reddit and from Gamingo's people talking about that game at the time just refer to how it was just a greed grab for money from the company. Another game we'll talk about really quick was Guild Wars 2. Some of you guys may have played Guild Wars 2. They did a mega server transition. Guild Wars 2 shifted from traditional servers to a mega server in 2014, consolidated players into dynamic instances while keeping worlds fresh for PvP. There were no VIP only servers, but they did, update the tech. The open world events became really great because there were a lot more players available now, but the players still reported the same thing that they reported in the other games. They lost their original server identity. They felt like the role player communities were fractured and just torn apart, so a lot of the role player community fell apart. And they also felt like there was overcrowding on these new mega servers. So I knew a lot of people who played Guild Wars 2. I don't know people who play it still now, but I'm sure they do. So something that we can take away, relevance to DDO, it's that, it may successfully boost the population of the game because it will funnel people from all the servers onto a VIP only server like Cormair once they start doing the 64-bit server upgrades. However, there will be a fracturing of the communities. There will be a fracturing of role-playing communities. We don't have PvP in DDO, so we don't really need to worry about that. But it's some of the things that we've seen from the problems that they've had over on the Lotro side. Some people were frustrated the way that they stagger. We don't have housing in DDO either, but they know they had to stagger the housing because my understanding, and I might be wrong about this, but because one of the servers got the majority of the population, it caused them to have to stagger the event slower than they initially wanted to. I think that they initially thought that people would evenly distribute amongst the servers that they opened, but what they found is like everybody just tried to get on one server. So that'll give them some data for our DDO migration, but we'll see what happens. Here now, we can look at the VIP only server only models that failed, Rift that failed hard, and the Final Fantasy, even though the buff aspect of it was super popular. The community fallout for things like this, some people think it's good for the game, some people think it's bad for the game. We won't really know until it happens in DDO, but something else to consider is that it could cause a population imbalance where a lot of the server population could be driven away because they feel like the game, the real game is behind a VIP wall now, and so people who play free-to-play on the free-to-play servers, they won't be able to access all the content because some of it would be exclusive. And so they may feel like, well, since that's where the real game is, especially if they give us like unique loot for the events, free-to-play players may decide not to play because they just don't want to feel that they are missing out. And this is sort of an ad nauseum, like, why would they do something like this? You guys can speculate and let me know in the comments what you think about. Obviously, there's a financial incentive to it. Obviously, there is a commitment to try to provide a VIP-only service. They've been talking about enhancing VIP service for a long time. We got the VIP exclusive rewards last year, and people have said they've met that with mixed reviews. Some of them are good, some of them are lackluster, some of them are bad. So the rewards were sort of all over the place. Would having a VIP only server really sweeten the deal for a VIP sub? I don't personally think that's the way that they should go. But, I mean, we'll see. I guess it would depend on what the exclusive content would be on the server. Something like Lanterns in the Mist would not be enough for me to say that it's justified because the Lanterns event was really slow. as an opt-in, and they've already said that the next opt-in that they're doing in October is going to be on every server. What we saw, the raid from Lanterns in the Mist got turned on every server, so like that is not a VIP only experience or a VIP only raid. But I do think that if they're going to justify the VIP model, that they need to have something that is clearly only available on Cormyr and is worth the extra the sub. I think it's something in closing to say that a decision to keep VIP only status on Cormyr without clear benefits to the players would seem like a risky move. On one hand, it would secure revenue for SSG, offering a controlled environment for the 64-bit tech where they could test and implement things in a controlled manner and then roll them out to all the other servers. But on the other hand, it would then treat the VIPs like beta testers. It would fracture the community. You could risk alienating the other free-to-play or premium players because they can't get part of the experience without paying actual money. We'll see how it does with Lotro, the move to 64. They do a VIP-only model over there, but they do it a little bit different. They have it set for like a greatly accelerated gameplay experience or like a greatly reduced slowed, so it takes a long time to level up gameplay experience. And they also stagger the servers through the history of the game updates, so like you can play on a server as it was when the game initially launched, and then over the course of a year they turn on various expansions. So they have like a theme for the specific Tolkien style world that they want. And so far those have proved to be pretty popular. People play, but you still do have that fracturing of the community. People leave the normal servers and go off to play in these special events. And so with DDO, where the community is not that big, it's going to have to be something more than that sort of a motivation. And the other thing too is that I don't think that it would be a good idea for them to lead with too much of the financial side of it. Whereas, you know, if they want to like bank on players being willing to pay to play on a server that they're going to use for testing, I mean, it's just, I have a hard time believing that the population for Cormyr would be big at all. It could be a situation like Rift where it's just dead on arrival. So I guess we'll have to see what happens. But you guys tell me what you think. Do you think that Cormyr should open up as a VIP only server and not allow transfers to it and transfer from it? Or do you think that Cormyr should be just a normal regular 64-bit server when they turn on all the other 64-bit servers? And will you move your main there? Will you move a tune off of there? Like, what do you think about like what type of perks or events would you want on a 64-bit server? Let me know in the comments and we'll see what happens. We don't know anything yet. All this is a lot of speculation, but if you've seen any of the live streams from SSG, they've talked about this a little bit, so I'm sure there's more to come in the future, but for now, that's it.
Where are you going? Hunting for gold that is flowing. Somewhere in the cold world hid, there is no knowing. Hey la, oh la la la. We love games. There's a stand of snow, let's make camp. We love games. games.